we're back again with another episode of Newmarket School District Corner. I'm Gary Swanson here with Superintendent Todd Allen.
Great, Gary. Thanks for joining us this month. I was thinking we could kind of run through the upcoming warrant, because we have a big vote coming up on March 14th. Thought it might be helpful to the community to just kind of run through what they'll be voting on.
That's a great idea, Todd. So this year we have 7 articles on the warrant. The first article is the election of officers, as it is every year. This year we have 1 school board clerk, the school board moderator, the treasurer, and 2 open board seats.
Yeah, so just let people know who's running for those offices. We actually have 5 offices and 5 people running, so everybody's running unopposed, but we really do appreciate these people stepping forward. Chris Hawkins is running to continue as our district moderator. Terry Littlefield is running to continue as the district clerk. Annette Brousseau is looking to continue as our district treasurer. Dan Smith is running for the vacant 3-year seat, and our own Gary Swanson is running for the 1-year seat to fill out the school board. So look forward to seeing how that turns out, Gary.
March 14th, come down and make sure you vote.
Now, last month we spent a lot of time talking about the operating budget. When I say last month, I'm referring to last month's school district corner. Did want to just mention to people that on our district website there is a link to all of the information we're talking about. There's a link to the narrative that we wrote that describes the whole budget. There's a link that shows the PowerPoint that we presented at deliberative, and pretty much anything to do with the budget is available there. But I did want to just remind people that, as we shared last month, that our total operating budget is a proposal for a 3.9% increase. And as we said last month, in a climate where inflation is running 6 to 7%, 3.9 is a very healthy place to be, so we feel very good about that. But one of the things that came up last month, Gary, was what we wanted to talk to people a little bit about the revenue side of the equation, because ultimately what people are probably wondering about is, what's this mean to my taxes?
Yeah, absolutely. With any budget, obviously there's a revenues and then there's expenditures. Expenditures is what we pay over the course of the year to various organizations and staff, and revenue is what we bring in, either from local property taxes or adequacy aid to obviously fund the school. So speaking of revenues, Todd, we have 3 types of revenue sources for the schools. We have federal revenue, we have state revenue, and we have local revenue. Can we dig in a little bit to state revenue?
Absolutely. Because actually the state revenue is really the story of this budget. And when you look at things, as I said before, I mean, the fact that we've been able to propose a 3.9% budget in a 7% inflationary climate, we consider that a very successful budget. But the real story of this is ultimately what's happening with state revenues. And one of the struggles we have had in recent years is state revenues have gone up and down quite a bit. State revenues come to us in 2 different forms. One is what's called the education grant, and the other is called the statewide property tax. And I have a great chart here, Gary, that I share that kind of breaks that down.
Yeah, it's just that's the adequacy aid analysis.
Yes. Yeah. Great. So let me just talk about that a little bit. I mean, basically, if you're looking at this chart, you can see there's the blue, which is what is the grant. It's the money that comes to the town of Newmarket that is not collectible. So that's the good stuff. Anytime we can get a dollar that we don't have to collect locally, it doesn't burden local taxpayers. The orange is what's called the statewide property tax, and it is collected in the name of the state of New Hampshire, but it's collected locally and returned to us locally. So it's considered part of the state revenue, but we have to pay it locally. So so what's happened to us this year is that statewide property tax portion that we have to pay has gone up. And you can see in the orange, between this year, where we paid just over 1.4 million, or we were given 1.4 million, and next year it's going to be 1.9 million. What that means is, from a statewide property tax standpoint, we have to collect $1.5 million locally than we did this year. The blue, you can see that it's gone down to 700,000. Last year we had over 3 million. This year it's 2.2. And clearly we're losing 700,000 on the good stuff, the revenue generated outside of us, and we're having to pay 500,000 more locally. Clearly, that has a negative impact on taxes.
Yeah, I think this is a really great chart because it shows a few things. Not only does it show the net education grant on the bottom in blue, and put on top of that the locally retained state education taxes. But when you combine them, you can see that back in 2022 we had almost 5 million. If you look at it now, we're down to around 4.5 million. So, if I understand this correctly, we're losing the amount of total amount of money we're getting. The amount of money we have to collect for locally retained state education taxes is going up, and the amount of education grant money we get is going down. It's kind of a triple win.
It is. So, I mean, what it really boils down to is that about a little over $1 million more has to be collected locally just to maintain what previously been funded through state aid.
When you say collected locally, you're talking about town school property tax, correct?
Exactly. Speaking of which, maybe we should just take a look at the estimated property tax, just to give people an idea.
Yeah,
on that.
absolutely.
So actually, we could just this chart here kind of breaks it down, gives you some historical perspective. I want to just start by just looking at last year. You'll see the blue in this chart is what we estimated. The orange is what actually happened. So last year, for example, we estimated the tax rate locally would be 21.76 on the thousand. It actually came in at 19.78.
So, if you look at the left blue compared to the right, 2023, you're saying that the taxes only increased actually 18 cents versus our predicted $2.17.
Yeah. So basically, we predicted something. We kind of, when we make our prediction, it's the worst case scenario, and then depending on how much of a fund balance we have at the end of the budget cycle, depending on whether we get additional revenues we didn't anticipate, those things get factored in, and then the tax rate gets set. So for this year, with all of the things we just talked about, the reduction in state aid, we're looking at our local property tax going up to $22.85 on the thousand, which is a little over $3 on the thousand more than last year. And certainly that is a big number.
Yeah, so as you said, it's really the worst case scenario, but we have to assume the worst case. Usually end up it's a lot better.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm optimistic that it will be less than that. Just how much less than that will be determined, in the fall.
Do you want to move on to the next article, warrant article?
Yeah, the para contract. I think that's a great one.
Yeah, so the Newmarket Support Staff Association is the para educators contract. We had some really great discussions with them this year. This is their second year of having a contract in town, which is fantastic. I think when we went into these discussions, Todd, the board had some really specific items that we wanted to address. Discuss those a little bit?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we realized coming into this contract, this was in a climate where getting employees was very challenging. In fact, we started the school year with 18 fewer paraprofessionals than we needed. And keep in mind, our entire paraprofessional staff is 45 people, so 18 is 40% of what we need. So we were having a real challenge getting people, so that was certainly one variable that we were thinking about.
Did you have people come in to interview, or were you not even able to? Oh, you were? Okay.
Absolutely. In fact, we had at least 5 people come in that interviewed, were ready to take a job, and when we got to our pay scale, unfortunately, they said, well, I'm going to take a job someplace else because it was a more competitive rate. I can't say as I blame them, but it was frustrating to us to be able to have good people hired for us.
And that's why I think it was so important for us to really try to be competitive with our neighbors and do a reset to a pay scale.
I mean, this contract, I think, as people will see in Article 3, in year 1, it's kind of a reset year. So what you'll see is, depending on where a person is on the pay scale, it's between a 12 and a 15% bump in year 1. And that may sound like a lot, but we were significantly behind the curve in terms of being competitive. By doing this 12 to 15%, it puts us in a competitive place. We're by no means the highest paid district in the seacoast, but it puts us in a much more competitive place. So I think that was good. And then in year 2 and 3, the increases are more in line with cost of living, 4% in year 2, 3% in year 3.
Yeah, I was actually really excited that the paraeducated negotiators were so on board with us that we really wanted to give significant increases to the first few steps, just because we need to get those people in and then be able to retain them. You can't get good help. You can't get good paraeducators. It really makes us all suffer.
I 100% agree, and I think that's true in the para unit. It's also true in many other categories of employment. So clearly, this contract is a real attempt to try to make Newmarket a more competitive environment. And like you said, I was impressed right from the beginning that we were on the same page with the union leadership. So I'm optimistic this is a really good contract, and hopeful that come next fall with the new pay scale, we won't have shortage of employees.
Yeah, I am too. Speaking of contracts, that actually leads us right into Article 4. Do you want to just go over what that's all about?
Yeah, Article 4 is actually just kind of a backup in the event the contract does not pass. Obviously, the contract has to be voted on by the town. If it passes by majority, Article 4 doesn't have any meaning. If for some reason the warrant Article 3 failed, Article 4 would simply allow us to have a special meeting to talk about the financial impact of a new contract, because obviously our employees have to be paid, and we have to come up with an agreement. We're obligated to.
And Article 5 actually has something to do with the bond. I think everyone knows we had a pretty significant school bond, and when you get a bond of that size in, you obviously accumulate interest on it, and that can add up to a fairly significant amount of money. Article 5 takes that final little bit of remaining bond interest, and what are we planning on doing?
Yeah, the idea is to put that, it's $162,110. It's interest remaining from the bond. It puts it in a capital reserve fund for school improvements. It would allow us to draw upon it in the future. For example, one of the things that, while we have renovated all of our schools, they are renovations, and so there are parts of the building that are not brand new. So, for example, there are HVAC units on the roofs of our schools that are older, and it would allow us to have money to do a replacement in the event that one of those gave way. And in our planning for our capital improvement plan, we are seeing that there are multiple units that will probably need to be replaced in the next 5 years, and this would be money that would have no impact on taxes, because it's not coming from money raised by tax, it's interest from the bond that would allow us to have those types of purposes.
It's interesting because Article 5 is the only item on the warrant that there's actually a little bit more discussion about than there was for the other articles. You'll see that the article is actually voted 3-2 in the school board. And I just maybe explain that a little bit. I probably should.
Yeah. I mean, certainly you can certainly speak from the board perspective. I think that'd be a great idea.
So really, I think there was 2 main reasons why the board had a lot more discussion about this particular article. Even though relative to the overall budget, it's a lower amount of money. I think, one, the board is very cognizant of the amount of increase this year for taxpayers. Obviously, it's a very high inflation year, and we're very worried about the taxpayers who are good enough to fund the schools. I think the other reason is that there was concern that we didn't have an overall capital reserve fund that really itemized out every use that we were thinking about.
And I think those were 2 very legitimate concerns. I mean, there's no question, we just talked about the potential impact on taxpayers budget. And it is true we did not have a defined plan. I would comment, since that discussion, we have made progress on moving forward with the capital improvement plan, and we certainly hope to have one by the end of this school year, certainly prior to next year's budget cycle. But you're absolutely right. That has not been fleshed out as well as it needs to be and will be. But I do think we do know enough now to know that there are capital needs that are coming our way in the near future. That this money will certainly be useful.
And then Article 6 is probably the smallest amount of money I think I've ever seen on an article. It's $249. That's an odd amount.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's quite a. I mean, it's kind of like closing out an old checking account. Basically, we had two capital reserve funds that were created largely around the building projects, and I think we've been setting money aside, and for the most part, all of that work has been done. And so we have these two accounts. One that is called the Expansion of the Schools Trust Fund has $149.07 in it, and then the School Construction and Renovation Fund has $100.32. So basically, we're closing out those accounts. That money would, if people vote yes on this, goes into the general fund, and it will be a part of the general fund that could be returned to taxpayers at the end of the fiscal year.
And then the last article was actually a new capital reserve fund, which is interesting. How did that come about?
Well, one of the things that we're trying to do when we plan a budget is to look for things that have the potential to be volatile and have significant increases on us. And unfortunately, the health insurance cost is one of those areas where you need to provide health insurance to all of your employees, but the potential for a significant increase is always there. The way it works is that every year we're given an estimated rate of increase. So, for example, this year we were told that the increase of insurance would be between 8.5% and 10%. That's what you budgeted for. That's what we planned for. When the number came in, it was actually 11.9%. So it was actually 1.9% higher, which actually was about $47,000 more. By the time we got the actual price, our budget had already been put to bed, and we had to basically absorb that in our operating budget. This article creates an expendable trust fund that would allow us, if something like that happened, to be able to cover it in some other way. So this fund asks the voters to take $50,000 from the year-end fund balance and put it into a trust fund, so that if we got a spike in insurance like that again, we would have money to draw upon to keep it down, keep the impact down. I would comment that in recent years, insurance has been pretty stable. But if you go back 5 or 10 years ago, there was some major spikes. Recently, 10 or 11 years ago, there were rates of like 17% increase, and that could be a really big deal if it comes in late in the game. And so having a fund to be able to guard against that, 50,000 isn't necessarily going to make all the difference, but to start putting money away like that, get a spike, you have the vehicle to do that.
So where are we going next today, Todd?
Actually, next we're going to move away from the budget, Gary, and we're going to go to Newmarket Junior Senior High School to the spring play, She Kills Monsters, directed by our wonderful Annette Blake. We're going to send it over there if we can hear all about production, how it was put together, and hear from the cast. It was a great show.
Awesome. We'll see you next time.
You got it.
I'm Lilla. I play the She in She Kills Monsters, aka Agnes Evans.
Hi, I'm Dylan Burns, and I played Chuck in Newmarket's production of She Kills Monsters.
Hi, I'm Corey. I'm playing Orcus/Ronnie.
Hello, I'm Athena. I play Calliope Darkwalker in She Kills Monsters.
Isaac Hadrich, I play Miles in She Kills Monsters.
I'm Charlie Conley Reynolds. I played Lilith Morningstar in the production of She Kills Monsters.
Chloe Roberge, I play Evil Gabby in She Kills Monsters.
I'm Ava Crump. I play Vera. Without a doubt, the best part about the Newmarket Drama Program is the community. I meet so many new people every day, and even being able to connect with like Miss Blake and Miss Bolio, our directors, has been so great to have like staff support, and it's really just an awesome place to be.
The best part about being in this production is the community. I've been with the drama club since 6th grade, and I've never left. It's been a great just experience.
Honestly, I really like the experience of seeing like how the production grows over time, from seeing it like us figuring out what we're gonna choreographing everything to the end product.
Part of being part of the drama program is definitely the people in it. I love the cast, I love the crew. I think everyone is super nice, so it's definitely been a fun experience.
There's a lot of problem solving involved. I'm both an art director and an actor, so I have a lot of work on my plate.
The number one thing I've learned is sort of how to confidently project myself and my energy out to a room of people. Before I joined, I was very nervous with public speaking and talking in front of crowds, but ever since I started, I've sort of becoming very, very confident in sort of just how I've been.
Meeting new people, it really, because like over COVID, I got really nervous to talk to people, and being in drama helps me talk to new people and meet new people from my school.
I think that I really enjoy the interconnectedness because our middle school and high school are able to participate in this together, and I haven't found that in any of the other clubs offered at this school. So to be able to get to know my younger peers and as a middle schooler get to know my older peers, I really liked that.